Welcome back to another episode of Veg Networking Canada, where plant-based vegan companies connect and collaborate. It's important to honor, acknowledge, and respect that we are located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of many Indigenous peoples of Canada. Today, we have a special guest with us. She is a champion for sustainability, community, and synergy, fueled by a passion for animal liberation, exploration, and ultimately making the world a better place. Continually striving to align herself with individuals and opportunities that enable positive expansion. Veg Networking Canada is pleased to introduce the founder of the Vegan Night Market. Welcome, Savannah-Rae Furfaro.
That was amazing. Thank you, Justin.
We're
Oh
thrilled to have
man.
you and learn more about you and what you have going on in business. We'll start with you personally. Whether it's a short story or a long story, we're here to hear it. And tell us the story of what led you to go vegan.
Okay. Well, I was always raised, I always had a connection with animals my whole life. I always had two dogs at home, and I was never a big meat eater to begin with. It was kind of more so like cheeses and whatnot. I was in the Cayman Islands in like the early 2000s, visiting some friends. And a friend of mine, Natalie, she had a spinach dip platter on a boat cruise. It was like my first real vegan friend that I met. And she was like, yeah, try this. It's vegan, whatever. And I was like, what? Like, how is it like vegan cheese and da 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 da? And I tried it. And then I got thinking, like, is it that easy? Like, should I try it back home? And from that moment on, it became like something of importance for me to explore. And then and initially, this is like full transparency. I thought like if you go vegan, you're going to lose like 50 pounds, 100 pounds. You're going to be this skinny figure. And it actually was like the opposite for me because all I did was indulge in like carbohydrates and stuff like that. And I wasn't familiar with cooking with tofu at all. So it was a long journey for me. But ultimately, like when I realized that it's a healthier alternative um, for my body, and then also to help animals, I was like, why wouldn't I try this diet? Like, why wouldn't I try going vegan? And then it kind of became like just a part of my lifestyle. It just was like it's a no-brainer kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah. Now, switching gears to business, and because that's the whole purpose of Veg Networking Canada, right? Where companies connect and collaborate. What is your start in business and your entrepreneurial origin story, so to speak?
So I was based in Toronto. I still am, but born and raised in Toronto. I had a clothing company, a thrift store called Pieces, like Peace, but with the S. I opened two thrift stores in downtown Toronto on Queen Street West, and I wasn't really content with being in the same place. And at the time, there was no a lot of markets were happening, but none of them were vegan and none of them were focused on sustainability or just like repurposed goods, stuff like that. So I dig deeper into what it would take to host my own market. And I did that successfully. So I closed both of my thrift stores and I started Pieces Market. And it allowed me to be mobile with my business instead of being situated in one place and not really getting to explore because I love traveling. So I want to incorporate both of the things that I like to do, which is, get people together, help small businesses, meet people, and travel. So I launched Pieces Market in, I don't know what year, like, I don't know what year, I can't recall. And it was on a monthly basis. And then from there, I traveled to Vancouver for the first time around 2017, and I fell in love with Vancouver. So I was like, how can I make money here? And I launched a vegan market in Vancouver, which was unintentionally Canada's first vegan market, which is awesome. And then the demographic in Vancouver helped the success of my market so much because I guess people were yearning for a vegan market, but also something to do because the city is kind of tricky like that. So from 2017 to 2020, I was commuting back and forth hosting markets in both cities. And once COVID happened, that's when I decided to take a step back, obviously, with events and just focus on Vancouver. So, up until it's been 4 years since I've had events in both cities, and I would like to expand the vegan market into on an international scale, to be honest. Like, I would like to franchise it. That was a goal of mine, because there is a gray market for that, and there's a demand for it. So yeah,
That's very cool. And you
brings
kind
me
of
to,
go ahead.
I said it brought me to now where we are today. I'm
Yeah, no,
in Vancouver.
that's so great. And you kind of answered the next question, which is where's your brand going in the future? You're talking about sort of like franchising and international. I guess before we get on, is there is it obvious like you had a thrift store that was pieces of clothing? You're very invested in like piece. Is that the reason why it was called pieces, or is there something else?
Like pieces could be, it was almost like a plural word for multiple wonderful things. So like I created the name. I was a vendor at markets too, right? Selling like my pieces. It was kind of unintentional. Like the brand name just came to me one day. And it stuck with me. It's like defines me, who I am, I think, ultimately. And it's hard. Sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle because you change so much as an individual, that you kind of lose. It's like almost like, um, sometimes I just get lost in my life, and I'm like, I came from so many different places, and that brand hasn't changed at all, but I've changed significantly. But pieces will always, that will always be my brand name that represents my journey. That's it.
No, it's great. Yeah, no, that's cool. It's always interesting for us to hear sort of what certain brand names mean and how did they come about. And some people have, like I said earlier, like a long story or a short story. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Um, is there anything in terms of that question about where is your brand going in the future that you want to touch on?
Yeah, definitely. Like as the vegan market builds up and becomes bigger, I've had multiple people reach out and ask, well, like when can you come to our city and stuff like that. And it's so doable. It's just a matter of like timeline and logistics and the resources that I have as like sole proprietor of my business. I don't have investors, I don't have a business partner. So it's kind of like on my schedule and when I'm ready to give my energy out to different cities and stuff like that. Um, I would like to branch out to Victoria because I think it's very practical and it's the closest place to us. Again, like I would love to, I think about the vegan market is definitely me, but how can I expand and also follow my dreams as like, a 33-year-old single female who wants to continue exploring. And I would love to bring it to cities that I love, like Paris and Hawaii and California. So if I can make that happen, like follow my dreams as well as allow this brand to grow organically, then that would make me very happy.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful vision for sure. Now, the next one's a little bit interesting because the vegan night market is of, I guess you could look at it like a quite a niche industry in and of itself. And it's almost like you said, it's pieces of different industries that make it itself. But the question is, what are some transformations or trends that you've noticed in your industry?
Um, Trends in my industry. Well, veganism was super hot like 4 years ago, like big time hot. It was almost like more exclusive then than it is now. Now I feel like it's products that are vegan are so accessible. So the mark, like I don't know really, like I haven't noticed many trends, but like we could talk about like Dia cheese, for example. Like we can go on about them and like what they've done in their business structure in the past like 4 years because I've seen their business structure change significantly. They're now targeting like non-vegan people, and I don't know exactly how much you know about it, but I know it's like a little bit. There's a little bit of conflict within the community how they feel about it. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. I haven't focused so much on trends, to be honest.
Yeah,
I
no, for
haven't really.
sure. Is there
Could you
is
like could you expand on like what your thoughts are? I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we phrase it as like, because trends, you think of a trend, it comes and it goes, whereas that's why we kind of phrase it like transformations or trends, because there's things that have kind of come into the space that aren't going to go away. They're more of a transformation than a trend. So I guess, just thinking maybe in the market space, is an upcoming transformation or trend, is it going to remain one day? Is it going to be multi-day? Is it going, I don't know. Like I'm
I get
not a
what you're
pro in the
saying.
market space, but yeah, that's just what I'm thinking from the market perspective. How are things
Yeah.
changing or what are you seeing?
Yeah, that's a good point. So as I get older, I am like kind of pushing away from night markets. So I used to like really love hosting night markets at 25, and now I'm close to 33, and I'm just like, oh, it'd be nice to have like a farmer's market so I'm in bed by like 7 p.m. So I guess it's like kind of changes with my personal growth as well. It's more so like what's gonna make me happy. To be honest, like I don't really pay attention to anybody else but myself. And I don't mean to sound like self-absorbed or selfish, and I just sometimes I just focus on what's gonna make me happy, how can I capitalize on like my brand, and like how can I make sure that it's a success for all these small businesses. I really don't pay too much attention to what else is going on. And I
No,
think like if you ask anybody, like, does that resemble Savannah's characteristics? And it's true, and people can love me for it or dislike me for it. But I'm just like I'm not as like involved in the community as I kind of wish I was. But like I kind of just focus on my little baby, and I constantly fail and I constantly succeed. And I think that's just part of the business.
well, that's interesting because with that being said, it's the furthest thing from being self-absorbed or selfish when we touch on the next part, which is like giving back. That's the next question. So, like, what does giving back mean to you or your business? How does it work with you or your business? And your business is centered, or that's a big part of it. So, why don't you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that has been the most rewarding thing about what I do in my lifetime is the money I was able to raise through my business for the less fortunate. And then also, you guys have been to the night markets in East Vancouver, so you know the concept of the admission structure. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to raise money in the past year because we haven't done any markets at the Waldorf, and the beach markets have been free admission. Um, but I guess that has been like the highlight of my career. And I think ultimately like who I am is I love giving back. I love using business as a force for good. That's been my mission statement since I started my business. I don't care about the money, and my mom is always like, you need to figure out how you can make more money, more money. And I'm just like, I think that like when you give you receive, and that's just like my, like I said, like you said before, like the synergy concept. And I think just like good things come when you have pure good intention. um yeah, like I'm not a multi-millionaire or anything like that, but that would be a goal of mine in the future.
Yeah, so for those who might not be aware of the admission structure or sort of like your history of giving back, like what does that look like?
Okay, so since about 2016, I've had an admission structure, which is by donation, minimum $2 donation, or you could bring canned goods, clothing, or pet food. And ultimately, I've never heard of another market that had that structure with their business. And I created that just because I was like, how can I give back? Like, etc. So That's been implemented since 2016, and per market, I would donate to a different animal non-for-profit within Ontario, Vancouver, sometimes outside of Canada, but they were mostly local non-for-profit organizations. And then with the clothing drive, which was canned goods, etc., they all went to local charities such as Wish Drop In Shelter. We've been working with them for like 5 years now, and they know us pretty well. We bring like truckloads of it, and ultimate and at so my evening market would run from 6 to 10 p.m. and from 10 till 11:30 we'd be packing up the car and then going to Wish Drop-In Shelter and delivering all of our canned goods and clothing, which was the best part of the entire evening. It was like a hard, it was just the best. So yeah, that's our concept that I had, and I'm sad that I'm not doing that right now, but it's just not work. It doesn't work out with the beach market. So
Yeah, and I suppose that, you're talking about Hawaii and California and Paris and things like that. That same vision can expand out there. And for what it's worth, I guess with an outdoor market, right, logistically it is more challenging because there's not one central entrance point where there is that sort of barrier of, but I guess perhaps there could potentially be, if it was available, like volunteers around and through the marketing of the outdoor market, communicating that there still was a donation structure or whatnot. And maybe that could still work. It would be different, but maybe it could still work outside. Um, People would just have to go around and see, oh yeah, like they would remember kind of thing. But anyways, um, so in terms of recommendations for other entrepreneurs, you mentioned so you focus on what you have going on, and we've had other people say that before as well, that they don't really pay attention to other resources like books, podcasts, apps, or websites or anything. But do you have any recommendations for other entrepreneurs?
I I read a lot of self-help books, and one of my favorite authors is Jen Sincero, and she wrote a book. It's called "You Are a Badass," and she has a couple different ones. But sometimes I lack I need reassurance in myself. So some of these books really help remind me of how wonderful I am as an individual and that I am enough. And sometimes, like as an entrepreneur, your biggest enemy is your own self. So, in regards to books, that's what I would recommend. Podcasts. Again, I'm a pretty spiritual person, and I listen to a podcaster called Sahara Rose. I don't know if you guys have heard about her. She's really great. She just talks about female empowerment and just all that good stuff. But yeah, those are my two highlighted individuals that I look up to.
That's awesome. Thanks. And that kind of leads into the next question, which is just one word, inspiration. So we've had people talk about what inspiration means to them. We've had other people talk about like individuals or nature as a source of inspiration, but that's the question. It's just kind of one word. And what comes to mind for you when you hear inspiration?
When I think of inspiration, I think about my two dogs laying behind me. Um, I'm a very empathetic person, and when I stare into their eyes and I love them unconditionally, I want to. It gives me the power to want to help, continue helping other animals and using my voice and platform to make a difference in this world. But ultimately, like my foundation of support is also my inspiration. It's the people who follow me on Instagram. It's the people who literally double tap my photo or my video, even though it doesn't seem like it's like important. It is, and it makes me feel good. My family, my best friends. There's a lot of playing parts to my success. But ultimately, like my inspiration is my animals. They're like my whole world, and my mom, and you guys, and other business owners and entrepreneurs. Like I think everyone's amazing and an inspiration to me.
Love that. So our final question for you, Savannah, is do you have any advice, lessons, or tips for other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think you should not be afraid to fail. I think that's like the most important piece of information. I wish somebody taught me that earlier in life. It was always about success, but never like you were almost ashamed to fail. But I learned that there is no success without failure. And I think if I could give anyone a piece of advice, it would be to stop procrastinating and just do it. Just do it. And don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid, indeed. So we chatted about a lot of different things, kind of open-ended for you here. And if there's not, there's not, that's fine. But if there's anything that maybe we missed that you want to go back to, any announcements that you might have, or anything that we did talk about but you want to touch on further. There was a lot of undertones in this conversation, I believe, at least in listening to you, about sort of like mental health and that kind of thing. So I don't know, like just open-ended floor if there's anything you want to touch on that we did or did not talk about yet.
Mm, no, I think you highlighted everything, to be honest. Like, obviously, I would like to highlight my next event, which is on, I was going to say Thursday. So used to Thursdays. Saturday, October the 19th from 12 to 4 p.m. And I'd like to like announce or do a call out for like other business owners or women or men that are interested in event planning or just want to get into the industry. Like I'm always looking to connect and collaborate with like everybody. So don't be intimidated or afraid to reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.
That's so great. And you mentioned the next event being on October 19th, Saturday, 12 to 4. And that time is an excellent time for everybody to come with their family. It's not a night market. You can bring your kids and your nephews and your nieces and the grandparents, the whole family. So that's awesome. Everybody, you can find out more online, theveganmarket.ca, and it's the same on Instagram, theveganmarket.ca. So, Savannah, thank you for being here. Everybody who's listening, thank you for being here. This has been another episode of Veg Networking Canada, where we were pleased to introduce the founder of the Vegan Market, Savannah-Rae Furfaro, and everybody else. Will catch you soon on another episode. Take care. Bye for now.